Welcome to this is a class that I've in a way taught before, spirit trees. Who's been on spirit trees with me before? Lar, Alec, Irene. So Esther, welcome to drawing trees with me. It's one of my favorite subjects, and so I just can't ever get enough of it. Hi Shireen, your video's off, which is fine, but if you'd like to show your show up visually, there we go. Welcome.
Hi.
We have most of Canada here, and we have American as well. I love that. So Christine is in Scandinavia still, so she'll be joining us next week. I think for the most part, we don't need to spend some time doing the hellos. We'll get to know each other if that's okay, and just so that we can get into what really I can help with for those who need to prepare outside of class. So what I asked for today is mostly pencil and sketchbook, and I just really want to talk about the anatomy of trees. But then I also want to talk about grounds. And this class, I'm focused on gesso, but I've also taught this sort of type of class with TriArt when I worked there, talking about mixed media. I believe mixed media on different types of surfaces. Oh, here we go. Nancy Jane has arrived. Love it. Because gesso, good morning, Nancy Jane, welcome.
Good morning. Sorry, had some technical issues as usual.
This is live, but I love that we're all here and making some art together. So we're going to start with talking about gesso and surfaces. And if you can't prepare it in class today, you can do that in between now and next Saturday, and you can always message me if you have any questions. I think gesso is a really incredible surface. It's overlooked for drawing. It typically is something that we look at for using to prepare a surface for painting. And one of the things about gesso these days is it's not made traditionally the way it used to be, with rabbit skin glue and all these other additives to make a barrier between natural products. So initially, gesso was essential for oil painting on canvas or linen, because oil is a natural product and so is cotton. And so they would rot each other unless there was a isolation coat in between, something that created a barrier, but also to save you on paint. So that's another reason why people use gesso, is to, especially since gesso is made with acrylic these days, and we don't have to make it. And I actually wrote Formulas for Painters book. It's a fantastic book. And it gives you all of these recipes on how to make things yourself. And I got this when I was in my teens, thinking that that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life, was just sit around and make gesso and soft pastels from scratch. And oh no. There is no time for that anymore. Maybe before technology, what did people do before phones and internet and TV? I don't know. But now there's no time for it. And besides, we can get things that are not just made ready for us, but also quality control. So we're not spending time making something where it might flop. So gesso is made out of acrylic, and in that, a lot of things come pre-primed. You can get your canvas pre-primed. And there's different colors now too. So I'd like to just touch on that. Let me do a little spotlight here and talk about the kinds of gessos that you can buy. The OG original gesso would be white. If it doesn't say anything other than gesso, it is white, and it will always be matte because it's a mixture of calcium wait, I just want to make sure that I'm giving you the right. I wrote this down somewhere. It's calcium carbonate. I have to trust my memory here, which is a bit different than like paint is pigment and acrylic polymer. So there is acrylic polymer in a gesso, but it also is generally titanium white so that you have a nice, fresh, clean surface to start on. And because of the other additives to make it absorbent, it will always be matte. This gets me into clear gesso, which I love because you can use it on top of old paintings, for example, and you can still use under layers. You can also, in my another favorite of mine is to just gesso nice, beautiful grained wood, and you can still work with the grain. Whereas putting down a white gesso is going to give you a nice, bright, white, and opaque surface. The other cool thing about gesso is that you can add color to it. So I will do a little test with you on that. I'll add a bit of Payne's Gray to the clear gesso. And in the spirit of just understanding our mediums, that because we want to have a tooth is a surface that has some grip to it so that we're not skating along with our pencil and it's not slippery and just gliding over a slick, say, acetate or something like glass surface. So we want something that has a little bit of grit to it. So I'll talk about a formula where if you're adding color to a clear gesso, you're not adding so much that you're overpowering that matte feature personality that's built into the clear gesso. There's something. Oh, there's also black. Like you can get colors nowadays. You can get burnt umber, black, canvas color, or sometimes they'll call it unbleached titanium, which is the color of like a cotton. And these are all personal preferences. However you feel excited reacting to a surface, or say some people really love starting with a dark surface and then adding light. So I'd like to also try that. I'm going to do a couple test pages. So for next week, we can start with a really simple piece of paper, mixed media paper, and this has gesso on it, and we'll do a test starting out next class. But perhaps we can have a couple smaller sample sizes if you have options, and testing different surfaces to see what you really like. This is something that not a lot of people get to see very often because TriArt is a local company in Kingston, Ontario, but sludge is their waste paint and from their wastewater, and they make a tint. So it's a bit gray. Let's see. You can see the difference. Just slightly gray. And it's quite nice. It's cheap. It's good for the environment is the number one reason why some people might use it. But gesso sludge, if you ever see it, it's worth a shot. I've had this for quite a long time, and it's still really, really good and viscous. So I've got a couple of surfaces here, and let's talk about tools. A nice wash brush, something soft, is usually recommended. This is a 2-inch. It's a really good size, even for small works. I have this cheapo, what the brand is FC China. Generally, all art stores now have these. It's a hog bristle, very inexpensive. And this is so old. It has, evidence that I don't always clean my brushes well. But I like that. So for the samples that I had been creating to just play with this and explore layering, in this one, if it's possible to see just some of that texture reveal, that's this because of this old beaten up brush. And so another little test I'd love to do is to have 2 different surfaces of gesso, one that's smooth. So if you have the, 2 different tools you can use, and then one that has more texture. You can also use a palette knife to apply. Is there any other questions about tools? Like maybe you have something odd that's on your mind. You're like, I want to know if I could try this. These are your basics though. So I'll set this aside and show you how to rock a surface. I'm going to use clear gesso on top of this is pastel. It's not fixed, and it was previously gessoed with clear gesso, but I just want to show that you can work this into dry media. So if there's anything that you want to recycle, you can put white gesso, or you can also play with clear gesso. So these containers I've already rocked very gently, just back and forth, or a little bit of a swirl. If your gesso is not drippy to some extent, it's probably drying out. So you should have this is called like a good viscosity. It's middle, it's medium, it's not quite thick, it's not quite thin. Different qualities will have different viscosities. So an artist quality might be thicker, and golden, for example, they recommend that you add water. There'll be a ratio on the label. Again, that's so that you get a nice smooth application. But if you want it thick, you don't have to add water. Come a little closer. You can see that the pastel is mixing in, and it's quite nice. I like it. And this is a great way to let go so that you're not starting with too much control. I'm just going with the flow, letting it happen. This will also seal it below. So whatever smudging happens now will be permanent. I don't have to do the whole thing. I could just do some parts and then leave some pastel workable. Now, I quite like some of these brush strokes. When this dries, which is recommended for, overnight, I wouldn't try and gesso something in the morning and then work on it in the afternoon.
Excuse me, Charlena.
Yeah.
Which gesso is that? Is that the clear or is that the white?
Clear.
Okay, great. Thanks.
You can see right now it looks translucent. It will never be truly clear when it dries because of the additives to create that tooth, with the matting agents that are added. So please just never expect 100% transparency. Now, if when this dries, I decided for whatever reason I don't like those brush strokes, then I can sand it and I can gesso it again. Do you have to do more than one coat of gesso? No, you do not. It is absolutely a personal preference. But you'll hear very traditionally that a lot of people will do 2 to 3 coats of gesso sanding in between, because then you get a nice, it's smooth. It's actually a smooth surface depending on the grain of sandpaper that you use. However, it's still absorbent, and that's going to be really cool for us when we get into mixed media and using watercolor. Because again, not a lot of people use gesso for watercolor.
A quick question, sure.
Yeah.
If you're planning to go back over that one that you just did and go in again with pastel, would you use that clear gesso, or would you pick like an acrylic ground instead, like with even more tooth, or does the gesso have enough tooth?
It has enough tooth
for it to go over with pastel?
Yeah, that pastel that I had used with pan pastel, so it was with the pan pastel tool. It was done on top of clear gesso.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never done that. I've only done the ground for pastels.
Pastel ground definitely has the best tooth. I have a document I'll send out in the follow-up for everyone. It's because in my past classes with mixed media, I've generally focused on the dry media ground, which has very, very, very similar properties to the clear gesso because it's translucent. You don't need a lot, like as in thick. So you get this nice little veil. So this has less tooth than the dry media ground or pastel ground, but they are both good for drawing. They both have erasability. I don't think like a thick, soft pastel stick, like a really nice, schmanky, buttery I don't think you'll like this surface as much because it doesn't have enough to grab that. But the pan pastel is good.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, so here it is. Okay. So for the white gesso, I'm going to take a pretty crummy scrap piece of paper that has been floating around. It's like cardstock here, and it's pretty dirty. And so fantastic. I can use the white gesso and do a nice refresher coat on it. If you ever have trouble opening up gesso in a jar like this, I don't want to wake up the puppy, but just do some bangs on the floor like so, and it should release. I've never had to put one of these lids under hot water or whatnot because it's plastic. Like it's not, you don't have to do that hot water method. So just banging it should loosen it up. Okay. So gesso still dries fairly quickly. And in that, putting down some some brush strokes and then not playing too much with it. So you don't want to really go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's unnecessary. It does start to get tacky in that. So I'm going to try and do a edge to edge with as minimal brush strokes as possible. If you like order in your life, you can try and do strokes that all go in one direction. If you like randomness, and I personally like randomness so that it doesn't look so intentional. I find that once we, as controlling human beings, try to make a pattern, it's never perfect enough. So I just feel like it's setting yourself up. So here I try to do a little bit of a dance, and then it doesn't look like I'm trying to get some specific pattern. So I know it's like you can't really see that too well, but there, a little shine. But that is also a personal preference. There's some little chunkies in there because of what's drying on the side. So something that I do not have good studio habits and practice is that these threadings should be cleaned. When I was working at TriArt, it was often that, my paint's dried out. Well, a lot of the time it's because this threading is dirty and it's not getting a good seal with the lid on. And then also you get these crummies. So it's recommended to be cleaner than I am. We'll set that off aside. I'm going to suggest doing a couple sheets of paper with what you've got. Okay. So let's try clear gesso with the tint. This is Payne's Gray. I will take out, and then also I'll use a different brush. Okay. So clear gesso. And then I'm going to suggest it's less than half. So that's about 25% if I was to guess in color. And because the gesso, the clear gesso, when it's wet, it has water content in it. It looks white, but it will dry clear. This is going to dry darker. This is on a black board, which actually really supports the Payne's gray being, that beautiful, rich indigo color. Because if I was trying to cover a white piece of paper, I didn't do this consciously. It's just that I had these old kind of scrap mat board pieces and I thought I'd use them. But yeah, it's actually kind of cool if you have black paper, you want to do a black gesso or a darker tint. It's better than using white paper. And you don't have to worry about coverage so much. And then you can get these cool kind of striations too. Do I have to mix it in perfectly? Again, personal preference. You want to think about trees and think about complementary colors. So doing maybe even a red tint, like an iron oxide would be really beautiful, or a burnt sienna. Okay, now I've got to stop because I'm playing a little too much and it may not feel like it as I'm working, but it is getting tackier and tackier, and it's just better to stop and do thin layers. So I can always come in and do another layer after it dries. So doing gesso prep, it can take time. I think a lot of, paper surface prep is like that. And so if you feel like you're going into the studio or your creative space to prepare a couple of times this next week, whether you're busy or, just know that it's normal. And you can do the actual preparation really quick, but there's a lot of time in between to let it dry and maybe check it. Hey, do I want another coat? You should be excited about the surface. I can see, yeah. But
Charlene, did you mix these two in? The Payne's gray and the
gesso, yes.
You did, okay.
Yes, yeah.
So you didn't just dab a bit, because some parts, yeah, I guess it was just the light. Some parts looked almost white, but it was because they were glistening, I guess.
Yes.
Because of the light, yeah.
There is a little bright spot here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not spotlight anymore. There's a little bright spot here, but that was, I had set down the brush with the white gesso on that area.
Sure.
But yeah, so it's really interesting that as this is drying, I can barely see the Payne's gray. So when this dries, and when this dries, I will do another coat of the clear gesso, the Payne's gray, and I'll probably add a bit more white intentionally so that I can actually see the Payne's gray. The black board, although, I said, hey, it's efficient, so you're not having to worry about, getting every inch of coverage, but it's so close in hue to the Payne's gray that it just looks like it's disappeared.
Right.
So if you ever are like, oh, you know what, that's drying differently than what I expected, right? Just let it dry and don't try and go in halfway through drawing and adjust it, because that's when it gets tacky and goofy and it's not very nice to work with. And it's just better to do a second coat. Yeah, when it's dry. Or you don't have to wait, say, overnight, but definitely, give it some time. A little trick is to hold the back of your surface with your hand. And if it feels cold, there's still water there evaporating. So it's quite significant. It's worth a try if you've never done that. Even when you're painting, it does not just gesso, but you can put your hand on the back of your surface, wood, canvas, paper, any of it. And yeah, if it's cold, it's still got some drying time. Okay, let me see if there's anything else that I had on my notes. Any other questions? Just shout it out. Okay, so thin layers. Really only need one layer, but it's all good if you want to do. And I actually think it might be nice to do one where you've sanded after the first layer is dry, and then do another layer and then sand it. That would be cool. Again, I'll put these in the follow-up, I'll suggest this and this and this. And then if you have alternatives, like you have more than one type of gesso, do 2 samples. Even if it's half a sheet of paper or a quarter is fine. I always think with Zoom classes, it's up to you. You want to go big. If you like drawing trees large, please feel free, right? It's just, it's okay to do smaller samples to experiment. I really liked this size, which was a quarter sheet for these little guys. Just regular, I don't even think this was watercolor paper. So Gesso actually provides stability. And if something was a little bit curled, you can actually, because Gesso's flexible, you can get it back into shape. So you can search for some real nice scrappy pieces of paper. Okay, I think that's good for prep. Does anyone need to prep during class because your life is chaotic and you have you have this time dedicated?
Yes, that's me.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Nancy Jane, I will get myself set up for the sketchbook and whatnot. But if anyone would like to just even get one thing started, it'll be a feel good thing. It'll be like, okay, you know what? I got into it. Got my paintbrush wet. Step one. We won't be using those surfaces today. They will be for next week.
Right.
So no rush, no stress. I know, Shireen, you said hopefully maybe you can put out a little birdie and say, hey, does anyone have Gesso? Because it's a fairly common thing for people to have. Yeah. And if you, for example, only had access to wall paint, like a primer, I believe that will work just fine. So you could even try that. If you have that anyway, you want to do a little test and like just write a little note on the back and say, this is the product that I used, so that in the future, you know, because if you run into like one of these surfaces we prepare that you don't like, well, then you want to remember which one that was. You're not doing that again. I keep things fairly simple with just buying artist quality gesso. And just to end off this thought on buying product, if you have to say, for example, buy product, if you walk into an art store and you see a big gallon or a liter of gesso on sale, don't buy it unless you are painting, preparing a lot of surfaces. Okay, this might sound insane, but you know, you don't have to necessarily follow this to the calendar, but it is suggested that whatever you buy paint wise, acrylic paint, because watercolor doesn't dry out the same. Oil paint doesn't dry out the same. So we're talking acrylic, which is that plastic polymer that's water-based. You're supposed to use it within 6 months. So if you see this amazing deal, but you're not going to use it all in approximately 6 months, then it's not a deal. You're actually just wasting your money. More than likely, it'll be an inferior, like student brand anyway. What is the difference between student gesso and artist gesso? Water content. So if you actually want coverage, you want the artist quality one. You can always add a bit more water, but you can't take out water that's been added. So student gessos will be very thin. Very thin. And that'll feel really nice applying, but then you will definitely have to do a few coats. Again, nothing wrong with that. So I'm not saying don't go for the deals if you feel like it's a win for you, but just be mindful that if it's sitting around on the shelf for a long period of time, and then also the more you use something, the more space that's in the jar, the more quickly the rest dries out. It's just like putting your leftovers in the fridge. You don't get a big, huge container. You get a container that's appropriate, less air, right? So just a little suggestions that have been noted while I've worked in the art material industry. So even though stores want to sell, they don't want you to be wasting your money. They're artists working there too, right? So any questions about what you have or what you might need to get? Surface paper as well. Any thoughts? You could choose cardboard. I was talking to Sharina about this. I said you could choose anything, an old pizza box, because you're gessoing it, right? Like you don't actually need to start with a good, expensive piece of paper.
Um,
Was that a question?
yeah, as you start cutting the gesso, the paper starts curving.
All good. It'll flatten out for the most part.
Yeah, I was writing that.
Yeah, it's okay. Let it do its curly thing. It will, as it dries, mostly flatten out. The flexibility of the gesso, you should be able to bend it back into shape. You can always tape down your surfaces. I don't have enough backing boards for me to do that because if I'm preparing multiples, I'd rather just let it curl, put them off to the side. But if you did want, you could to tape on 2 corners or all 4.
Okay.
There is sometimes you can do an X of gesso after it's dry. If it's really still wonky, you can do an X on the back. It should pull it back and tighten it up, but you don't always have to do that. You can always text me like, halfway through the week and be like, oh my gosh, this is out of control. And send me a picture and we'll look at it. And because there's always troubleshooting like answers, but they don't always apply to this. And there's so many variables. So we just have to, I guess, see what happens. Wood, I'm going to suggest if you have any wood surfaces, wood would be wonderful to try. We can always get into it, say the 3rd week, so that you feel a little bit more confident, and then we'll do like an in-depth reference. So I did send out some references today. We're not drawing all those trees necessarily, but I'd really like to get our pencils out and just get into action, getting some whether it's review, because you have taken classes where, there's been a discussion about the anatomy of trees. It's about getting into action and really just thinking about getting that fresh in our minds again. And if maybe there's some new stuff that I can hopefully pass on to you, because that's that's my mission. That's my goal, is to show you some tricks that I've learned being obsessed with trees and how to capture the spirit. So I'm going to get my sketchbook out. We're going to talk about lines just with a graphite pencil. Okay. We'll get into other media next week. We'll talk about lines. We'll talk about branches, trunks, the overall canopy, sky holes, the negative space, but also about just being conceptual. And just because we have photo references, that we're not going to be copying branch for branch. I actually forbid it. All right. In the May classes, which was looking at complex scenes and drawing them very minimally. The last reference that I had, because we all kind of did our own, which, by the way, you're so welcome to do. I mean, I mentioned that, right? That I sent you some references for trees, but you are like, if you in your photo album on your phone or your computer, if you use the search and you put in tree with AI now, with the updates on all your phones, you'll get all of the tree results, and I'm sure you have hundreds, guaranteed. uh, uh, it can be really overwhelming. I mean, I have a folder still of printouts. Irene, who has had to leave, but she'll be back next week. She had said, "Oh, Shar, I want to use this reference that I gave out in a Spirit Trees class a couple of years ago. It is super complex. I love that she's choosing to do it. She didn't do it back then, but now it's like, hey, I'm ready for that challenge. So I'd also like for you to feel challenged, but comfortable. Like, oh, I'd like to see if I can do that, and that's where I can help you. But certainly, I didn't want to send this out. Like, this is a bit intimidating. This is a bit too simple, this type of clip art stuff. So what I had sent out was some old and new. This is an older tree that I've always loved. It was at my friend's farm, and I've drawn it quite a few times. These were some newer. Oh, actually, this is in Newborough. So if anyone, for those who are coming to the Cove, these trees I took while I was researching venues in that area, and I really loved how they just look like characters. Like if I put little googly eyes on them, they were little Muppets or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's some really great shadows in there. And then this was a recent photo that I took that I really liked the atmosphere. I love naked winter trees. I love seeing all the bones, but I'd also like to, over the course of this month, talk about leaves and different types of trees, shapes, and getting the canopy and what kind of marks to make it look like you have a whole bunch of leaves, even though you don't. So out of this, or I think there might have been, I sent out a different, this is about, we'll talk positive and negative shapes. And then I think there was I just didn't print it out. There's an evergreen and then a deciduous tree. So you get to choose your mission. In the last class, I had been looking at this 300-old pine tree that I saw in a park in Japan, and it's so complex. This is from the front, and all of the beams holding it up. So Japanese, right? Mm-hmm. So beautiful. So getting some quick line work in to really sketch and understand that tree, that's what I'd like to start with for us today. So we're going to be going in very loose and gesturally. It does not matter what kind of graphite pencil you have. If you have a variety, then I would suggest to explore a variety today. I love mechanical pencils, so I'm going to pick that one. And I think I'll just stick with 2B. And then this is an interesting line. This is Faber-Castell. They did a matte graphite. I don't know if this is, are we getting into focus here? No. Why are you not focusing? Oh, there we go. So we all know that graphite has a sheen. So take your pencils and your sketchbook and just do a very, very dark, press really, 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 really hard. Doesn't matter the weight. The weight is the number on the side. HB is generally in the middle. And then we go all the way up to 9B. And then all the way down to 9H. H, I remember that as hard. B, I remember that as bold. The higher the number on the bold side, the softer and darker it will be. And if you do have a set to explore, then looking at, say, like a 2H, it's going to be harder and lighter and scratchier. But that's all, again, we're going to talk about value. And usually if you have a 2B, you can do it all. So here we go. Shall we start with these little wonky trees then? I'm going to start there. Okay. Let's get a little sharpen. Remind myself to slow down. That's how you don't break your pencils. Nice. Okay. I'm going to look at these little guys and just think about the overall shape. So very lightly, I'm not going to press too hard. I'm going to put in that organic shape, this tree. And then, I mean, they almost look like they're dancing. And this one's taller.
It is an F.
You have an F?
Yeah.
An F is somewhere in the middle as well. It's like HB, F,
Okay.
H. It's quite hard and light in and around an HB. You know, I never suggest those sets because of getting those ones. You know, no one needs 9 pencils. I love that that's how it used to be in the drafting days. You would drafting people would use mechanical pencils or the harder leads like F or 2H because it wouldn't smudge so much. You'd get a nice crisp line on the vellum, the drafting film. But these, you know, more expressive sketches, I would suggest anything in the B range, so you have some smudginess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got these little ghost, just very, very light and sketchy, almost like a continuous line. And I'm going to find that trunk on each of them. And it's really quite difficult to find the trunk on the one on the left, but I know that it's in the ground. I know that it meets the ground somewhere. And it seems to be just to the left of that opening there. Now, if I can't see the trunk, what I can see are the shadows. So I'm going to look at those shapes, just looking at that they're shapes on that hill in that park. And with a very continuous line, maybe a medium pressure, I'll just do a little squiggle. Something to practice is to have a comfortable angle for shading. And now old masters, Leonardo da Vinci, silver point, which is basically drawing on gesso actually with silver. I can show that next week as well. You'll notice that there was a very consistent hatch, and a hatch is a directional mark. And that can really bring a sense of unity to your work. It shouldn't be forced. It should be quite natural. So if you want to just play with that a little bit in the shadows and do a hatch that feels good, you know, don't contort yourself and be like, oh, this is a nice looking hatch. but you're all twisted up. You can also move your paper. Okay. So coming in, I'm going to look inside these shapes and just now squint and look at the shadows or the dark shapes in here. So it'd be like in here. And this wonky pine, which so reminds me of the Monet poplars, has quite a large dark area. It's the darkest of the two. It almost looks like a moustache. And it'd be really helpful to loosen up just to keep your line continuous. And then that's our dark areas. So coming into the mid-tones, get a little less pressure and start to use your pencil in the direction those branches. We can't see the branches on these guys. So your mark making should show the movement of what we can't see. And then as that mid-tone comes in around that initial dark shape, I will have to come over again into that dark area, pressing a little bit harder or getting a different pencil that's darker. And now I can start looking at the edges, breaking through this initial organic line that shows the overall shape. Again, just play with a continuous scribble. So it's really not about inside the shape as much as the edges of the shape. And wanting to show a whole bunch of leaves, the wonkier the better. And as I'm traveling, I'm adjusting my pressure, looking at edges and looking at value. Now the light is pretty much right up top. And these are big trees, so they're very, very, very dark underneath here. So if I want to start and establish the darkest and really pressing hard, that'll help achieve that value because I can't get any darker. I can't press any harder. And this is a 2B. Oh, maybe I can try a darker 10B. Oh yeah, by the way, so these Faber-Castell graphite mats, I bought them just to try them. They are supposed to have less sheen, and thus I think it's better for maybe photography. You don't get the glare so much, but there is still a sheen and it feels a little bit more like a pencil crayon than it does graphite. So it's an interesting formula. I'm not sure what to make of it. So, and I've also read similar reviews where other people are like, interesting. And as you scribble away, those scribbles will create an illusion. At first, they might be like, oh gosh, this looks like a mess. So you just got to trust that a scribble is a pattern. And for the edges, this little guy here comes out, and I'm just going to create a fern, like feathery. It actually looks like a feather, doesn't it? It's a feathery edge. Very meditative. I love it. Now on Gesso, when we get into this next week, it's going to be awesome and very efficient to smudge. So if you want to get your finger and push a little bit, if you are using like a 2B pencil, it should smudge pretty good. If you're using something harder, you might find it doesn't smudge as well. But knowing that is good. But yeah, a smudge can really help to fill in just that lighter value efficiently. There's always, I would like to put a little circle for the sun because it's a reminder of like this shape. It's darkest on the bottom. So you can always start with that dark to dark. If you go too dark in any one area, you can easily take, I wouldn't go into the white eraser right now, just a kneadable. Just warm this baby up. And you can just pat, lift, press and lift, and just get a little lighter, gently at a time. And of course, you can erase anything that was preliminary. These are two different types of trees. So the one on the left, I am looking for the pattern that I see. It's one of the reasons why I give small reference photos. So, because if you were to be able to zoom in on this, you would probably be like, oh, I actually see like, a lot of detail, and that can be painful. And you can always maybe do that later. You can always look at detail later, but for now, just actually not seeing the detail is really, really good. So that pattern that I see to me is like, it's almost like a doctor's script, medical script. It's like maybe like a little bit like quick kanji lettering, alphabet soup scribbles with a couple of dots here and there. And you do that enough and you will get, again, that illusion of leaves. So more important in the fringes, the edges. Depending on how large you sketched out this little warm-up study, maybe just focus on a part of it if it's a very large, if it's like your whole sketchbook page, because this does take time. Always more time than you think. And it's not essential to finish this. This is just about warming up our eyes for shape and value. Now, when it comes to like the negative space, in between all of these scribbles is the white of my paper. But generally, you're going to have the sky is either the lightest, so even the lightest part of the tree cannot be white. So coming in and doing a barely there tickle over top to give a slight value, or a smudge, you can do a smudge as well, just a slight value to the highlights. And it really brings it together. So sometimes having a lot of that white space is an indication of, okay, let's go in and bring in a little bit on the scale of like, it's not white, it's just the next stage. Y'all know, or most of you do, that I love brushes for smudging. So you don't have to use your finger, but I don't want this class to necessarily focus on the kind of smudging technique that I enjoy. It's not about that. It's actually the first time I've really been like, you know what, let's like embrace graphite, because it's such a tough one with mixed media. The sheen can really be problematic, but on gesso it won't be, and that's to me very exciting. So it's very different for me personally. It will always be in the trunk, even if you can just see a little bit of it, because of the shadow cast. It will always be really dark, especially where it meets the canopy. These ones are like seriously silhouetted, but yeah. You will probably notice that you can't get super, super, super dark because this isn't charcoal, and that's okay. So whatever weight you're using, whatever softest weight you're using, that's your darks. And it's not to say things have to be very extreme. But I feel like a whole new woman saying this, because it's not really, it's not really been my philosophy. I'm generally dramatic and let's go, as black as possible. Okay, let's also look at doing branches. I've drawn this one before, so I'm going to go with the spooky. I mean, this isn't spooky. It was literally just moving into spring. But yeah, I want to look at trunks and branches and variegated lines. Does anyone want to share your sketch up into now? And just make it be like we're in a classroom together.
I'm not ready.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, neither am I. They look like little goblins or something.
Yeah.
Goblin trees.
It's preemptive.
Early.
I'm gonna bring my sketchbook closer so you can.
Charlena,
Yeah.
I only did one, but I'm willing to show it.
Yeah. Let's see it, baby.
Sure, I'll go for it. So I just hold it up, I guess, here.
Yes, where we can see. Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Still working on it, for the darks and.
That's good.
But
Oh, babe, you're good. I mean, it's however, if you feel like it's still drawing you in to add more texture, but you've got it. That's the spirit, the essence. You don't need any more. Maybe just a darker in the base to finish that off and really ground it to the earth. and match that value of the shadow underneath. But the inside of the tree, it feels full. It feels dimensional. It feels textured. It's great. I love the edges and the whole overall shape. Yeah, that's exactly what I felt looking at that tree.
I love the movement of this tree and the feeling like they're dancing together. So I'm going to work on the other one as well. But
yes.
Yeah.
It's calling you, your partner, the tree's partner is calling, let me in on this dance. Fantastic energy. Hopefully everyone's enjoying this scribble stroke that I think gets it's underappreciated, and maybe it's talked about here and there with some instructors. I mean, I hope so. I'm sure it is. But also, I just think that sometimes when we see other people's work and it looks so highly detailed, if you were really to have be a fly on the wall and see their process, it's more than likely more scribbles than we think to fill in space, and then achieving kind of more of the final details here and there, which again we'll get into. But it's really about this stage and getting the form and the feeling is a generalization of a stroke. And if you want it to feel natural anyway, because any other stroke is going to feel controlled, and trees no one controls trees. Unless, well, actually some people try to, but look what happens. They look terribly synthetic and like a plastic Christmas tree.
I think I'm ready to share.
Yeah. Oh yes. Love the one that's the taller one. You have fantastic strokes in there. And the other one has, it almost feels like there's it's like you're seeing the pattern of the squirrel that's been running around through it. That's awesome. You went really dark on that left one. It maybe just bridged that value. The other one I would leave though. I like the value that it works there. And so on the other one, so it's not so high contrast. It's great. And that you have two different types of textured strokes there. That's nice, because they are two different types of trees. I see that very clearly.
Thanks.
I'm going to see what I sent out for references. I'm just going to take a peek here. Here. Oh, yeah, that tree. Oh. That's a good tree. I'll pull up my sketch for that tree, and if anyone wants to do that, I'll show you how I've approached it. Okay. So on the same page, especially if you're still working on those two dancing, let's call them the square dancers. I'm definitely in the habit of naming the trees that I'm working on because it's a relationship. On the same page, no need to skip to a new page. Let's just continue to layer. I'm going to look at more of the anatomy. I like to reference this one because it's newer for me. And I hope that that's okay with everyone, because like you want to follow along with me, then this is the tree that I'd like to do. But there was another reference that I had sent out, and I think it's a great option if you like it. And I'll show you how I've done it in another class. Is this one.
Beautiful.
I love again, it's that character, of this tree that's really reaching. It almost looks like a yoga pose, or, something, a dance as well. And so this reference that it had two, so it's this reference. It has a really nice, almost like clay thrown base, like if you were to put a slab of clay down on a wheel and really just like make it all, wonky. And it, so I loved that grounding of the tree, and the overall shape. So I will sketch that out, the overall shape, for those who might be interested in that. This one is a little fairly, it seems simple, but when I talk about the branches and how to build them up, this actually could take quite a while. In this demo that I had done previously, you can see there's, it's not finished necessarily, right? But this is where we're going to start. We're going to start with the whole body and then start going into the finger branches. So those were done at the end. Stop share. Alrighty. Just making sure this is still on Spotlight. Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to stay in the same sketchbook page. This is a freebie. That sounds good. Okay. So for just shape, so this one, if I just look at this main tree here to start with, the overall shape, so it'll be a very quick gesture. Looking at, so when you're trying to fit something on a page and you're looking at this, instead of, saying, oh, well, it's this tall, it's like the trunk is half until it starts branching out. I can just say, I want this tree to be in this area. And so halfway is when I start to branch out. And this is like, if I was to do like more like a lollipop-ish, that this tree has gotta, if it's going to work on this page, it's gotta stay in this zone. And so whereas I may have previously thought this trunk would be taller, I'm going to be scaling it. Looking at the dark side is always a good place to start. You can have that skirt. Just making sure this is on camera here. You can have that skirt coming and meeting the ground. Doesn't have to be literal at all. We all know trees root into the ground. Having a dark side, having a bit of a pattern here with the trunk bark. It's like ziggy zaggies, so it's very inconsistent. Lighter on one side. It is not completely smooth, so in that you can have a bit of rough edge. There's a little knot. And then I will get into the arms in a moment, but just for this other tree, that was an option if you're into it. Again, I'll say I want it to be contained in this area. This is the one that has the real modeled bottom here. And then, okay, so There's a lot of long branches. So this bottom part has to be contained in this area here, which is about, a quarter of that whole space. And I'm just going to grow that tree, looking at the tree, continuous line. This is like a contour in a way. Don't worry about the detail of the bark. Actually, this is a silhouette. You don't really see anything, but go, oh, you know what? That looks a little too short in comparison to the reference photo. Well, don't worry about it. It's fine. Just leave it. Go with it. Try not to touch your eraser. And before I start getting into more of the smaller fingers, I'm going to go, nope, stop myself, come back, get into the body again. Now, a variegated line and how I'm going from thick to thin is about pressure. And sometimes a bit of a twist can help. So I'm going to start, we're going to anchor, do a little skirt, and I'm going to press and twist and then release. That still might need to be a bit thicker, but that's okay. I'm just going to look at the main press. And this is a variegated line is about getting something that is thick to thin to thick to thin. Did I lose someone? Oh, Shireen. Okay, that's cool. So once you start to put in these arms, sometimes it can feel like they're a little too same, but that's going to be the tension that's created for you to then make them different. So don't stress about them at the time, just continue to get the overall. And then we come back and start to adjust and say, that's a bit thicker here. And maybe start to accept, just making things a little bit different from each other, but also accepting and saying, hey, you know what? What's the point of taking out branches when there's a whole bunch of them? Might as well make them work. So then we start to get into smaller ones. And as long as they start from a branch, no matter what, it will work. But you can't just have a line out like so. It'll feel weird. So connect. And then also cross over. It's like you're creating like a little cobweb. And it'll always look like puny until you develop more and more and more and more. And so it's a patience meditation. I'm only looking at the reference photo when I feel like I need guidance. Otherwise, I'm looking at what the pattern is and then going in and kind of intuitively doing a couple of marks at a time. And if you lose your place where you were looking at your reference, just start somewhere new. And just go to the other side of the tree. And if you get bored like I do, because I do, then that's why I will have say 2 references going, and I'll be like, okay, I'm not bored of drawing this guy, but just for the record, that's an option to go in and say, hey, I'll work on this one for a bit. So with the anatomy, what's most important is the connections and that the branches have a little bit of a bow, especially on the larger branches, and that the smaller branches are still connected somewhere to the body. Now, the little voice in your head when you go, I don't really understand what's happening here in this photo. This is why plein air is so amazing, right? Because you can just walk around your subject, or like, you can't have a tree still life, but you can go outside and draw trees. But yeah, if you're not sure from a photograph, you're not understanding the complexity of an area, then just draw what you see. Don't stress about it. Just start in one area, draw what makes sense to you. It'll probably put itself together. And if not, then we troubleshoot in a different way. So interesting graphite on camera, just for the record here, we're referring back, is that you can see value is so relative to the actual light in the room. So if I tilt my sketchbook and you see that shine, so sometimes it is good to move your sketchbook as you're working, because you could be seeing, like, maybe going, oh, that's not dark enough, but maybe it really is, depending on your lighting. I also have the right to eliminate branches if I'm quite happy with the shape of something as it is. And I see that in the reference photo, it's very much more complex. And yet it's not about the reference photo. So it's there. Take what you want from it. One thing I've learned over the years is to not underestimate the thickness of those main branches, or else the tree just looks spindly and like it won't survive, any wind or weather. So always take a second look before you start getting into smaller branches and go, does this feel proportionate? Does it feel thick enough? I'm going to do a little workout on these and give them some muscle. Oh, getting into smaller branches, finer branches, you can, if you have options, maybe think about a harder lead. So if you were working with like a 4B, maybe look at a 2B, because you'll get a nicer point. Smaller branches, these tend not to be like, they shouldn't be curvy. so much. They have wonkiness, right? So there's sticks. Think about, touching a little twig. It has flexibility, but it's generally got a straight and then a bend, and then it's weaker at this. So there's a taper. So that's where, again, that variegated thick pressure and then taper. But we're looking for more like jaggedy than we are like, oh, branches aren't like waves. You're reaching for the sky. And they're typically going up and out, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller near the top and the ends. And these are the things we know, but it's just, balancing that technical part of the brain with this sort of repetitious meditation. Mm. Mm. I know this is just coming to my mind now, like for anyone who has clear gesso, if you gesso white paper, it's going to, in a way, look like you have used white gesso. So if you want a nice bright surface, all you just need is a nice, clean, bright white piece of paper. Something we'll also talk about as we get into mixed media is, beyond the sketch and then creating atmosphere. So next week we'll also talk about like atmospheric perspective, and then other tones like around. So once you feel like you have the bones in the body, now you can start getting into fashion and then creating a softness. This is why I do like brushes, but the high contrast of the paper to the sketch is a little too high for me. So just coming in and bringing in some smokiness is not essential, but just so you're like, well, this is where you can get into playfulness. Right. You got the body right. Now you can have fun and start to also play with like pushing graphite and what can you do with it just on paper. It has a nice tone. It's like a coolness to it. Mm. And then you can start to even play with like other tools that you have, different types of erasers. Eraser pencil can get into, like these little pointed ones can get into making some removal. If you feel like an area is too solid and too dark, then you can bring in an eraser to lift that up. Eraser shields can be really, really fun. I could actually make this tree look like it had leaves in a way, in an abstract sort of expressionistic way. The contrast isn't really too high. So in that, you can also use eraser shields as stencils. Probably better with the pastel than a pencil because that actually feels really like nails on a chalkboard. So never mind. Oh my gosh, guys. Graphite sticks. Oh, so good. I can't see the weight of this, but I'm telling you, okay. So you just want to like play with the different types of graphite things you have. Check out how incredibly dark this is. Oh, it's so gorgeous. I love it. This is so dark and smudgy. Just a graphite stick, so very efficient. This is why you would even have different formats of something, like why have a stick versus a pencil, to create a large area very quickly. Just delicious. So that's putting it in the negative space and behind. Really soft sticks like this, very, very dense and messy, but we will, if you have tools like this, it's really cool to play into this kind of graphite pigment with watercolor because you can create like earthy tones. Like a red mixed in here is going to create like a very rustic. Well, actually, yeah. Here you go. So these were very bright colors, but because they're mixing in with the graphite, they create more of like a muted palette, and it brings a sense of unity to the work, which is exactly, the charcoal classes that I've taught in the past. Why I use charcoal powder? Well, because it creates a sense of harmony and unity very efficiently. And so the softer your graphite, and the more smudgier it is, that can do the same thing as well. Like using graphite powder. So like when you can create a big, huge area like that, then you can start playing with erasing back. When I mean playing, I mean play. Like I am not looking at a reference for this. It's just like, ooh. That actually, interestingly enough, creates a similar sort of perspective to this complex photo? Do we need to draw this out branch for branch, or can we create the illusion and the idea? So I'm going to mark 11:30 as for Irene to follow up on the recording and take a peek at that. I think that worked out really well. Does anyone?
Sure, I'd like to share, Charlene.
Great.
Yeah. I'm doing, well, the first one was this.
Oh, a forest, like it's like over top. Cool. Okay.
A forest, which proved to be more difficult.
It's challenging, yeah.
Right. And
oh my gosh, Rob. Oh, that's gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Does it read okay?
Yes. It looks like a group of 7 sketch. It's beautiful.
Oh, good. Okay. And then I just did this one.
Nice. Yes. You went for the whole forest down to the one tree. I love starting with the complex and then coming back and just saying, okay, what, all those little tiny trees in the forest, what do they look like?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Good energy. Perfect.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Now.
I mean, it's going to be so exciting getting into color in it, Suzanne, right? Like, and that could be, your design study for then taking that composition and doing it with the autumn colors, and then getting into like some splattering and layering, and see that that's going to really make it also feel like a big forest. Yeah. These could be sketches for next things. Again, for everyone, like, look through your tree photos if you want. I will always provide you with some. I'm going to send out. I just took a photo of these 2 trees that are in my yard that, to me, I'm calling Emily Carr trees because of the way that they are moved, like they're dancing too. All trees are dancing, but like these 2 have. Every time I see them, I'm like, I have to draw those trees now. And so I'd like to, and, you're welcome to use the reference photo, or of course your own. And I would say being excited about it is the number 1 criteria, and just wanting to do it. So if it's tough, good, bring it on. Let's do it.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd like to get into doing more scenes. So not just standalone trees necessarily. So this little, please, at any point, if you like to share, just say so, and I'll spotlight. Because I think it's nice when we can see each other's work. I certainly love to see as we're going. This little fella, for example, it's not to me just about the tree. It's about the land and the sky. It's about the whole feeling, the whole vibe. I did have a reference photo for this one, but I also did a lot of it just very impulsively. And then the colors also were very chosen impulsively. This one was plein air. My goodness, I wish I could do plein air on Zoom. It'd be so cool. So this was just putting in the bones and then not stressing at all about the leaves. And so that'll be really cool too, when we can get into, like, whether it's pastel or watercolor, that it's super efficient to then fill in an area and looking at the negative space. And but letting something drip. I think this is, I put it on the ground and I let it drip by accident. And it's an upside down drip. And yet I freaking love that. I'm like, oh my gosh, it just takes you right out of, like, more surreal and ethereal than feeling like I have to capture that tree so perfectly. I mean, what's the point? Get a camera. I'd like to show, there is a product called Silver Point Ground, and hopefully I can find it. Yes. Oh, is that you? I'm so proud of Toshi. He is behaving so well. And then I probably just jinxed that. uh, so this is Silver Point drawing ground, and I'll have to look for some work that I've done Silver Point. It was one of the images I used to promote the class. And I'm pretty sure I can find it in the in a sketchbook somewhere. But Silver Point is like where you actually get a stylus. Let's see where here. Well, it's a silver, like you can use your ring or something, anything that's silver, but you can get styluses that have a little silver tip. And so then you put down this ground and it oxidizes. You can also do copper drawings and gold drawings. Gold will leave a different colored mark than silver, and copper leaves a different mark as well. They're not cheap. You can buy these little styluses at the art store. But guess what this Silver Point drawing ground is? It's just a really thin gesso. So again, the industry, you know, labeling for, you know, I now have 2 things of gesso here, and I didn't need it. So thinking that I was buying something special, but then realized it's just gesso. But anyway, it is actually a nice applicator. I have to say, Golden's packaging is pretty nice. Sometimes, like, you know, some of their stuff is generic, but this is nice to just like put out more specifically, because that another thing I'd like to try as we move forward and experiment with layering is doing a drawing in your sketchbook, like we have, and then bringing in gesso after the fact, just as an addition. So this could be like a really good applicator, you know, Silver Point drawing ground. Not easy to find. I will say that it's all like your art store carrying this would be like maybe, you know, there's a university and they have a class on Silver Point drawing. So you could either order it online, or you might not find it so easily. But let me get a brush here. So just putting a little spot here and then bringing it in, and see how it's not just about drawing on top of gesso, but also using gesso to create a little bit of a veil. Okay, so there I'm putting some gesso down, and it's not quite covering, but it's actually making it feel like I've intentionally done that. There's a little bit of like foggy scenario happening there. While it's still wet, you can pull it back and scrape it back, like scrape the gesso back off. So if you're like, oops, a little too much, you can scrape that back. Also, you can draw right on into the wet gesso. And this is really fun. I love drawing into the wet gesso. And if it's, say, clear gesso, you could always add a little bit of titanium white if you wanted that opacity, or work with it being clear. And just that's the drawing and painting sort of combo where the graphite ends up becoming paint. All right, guys, I got to show you this because it's way too cute.
Is it babies? Oh,
He's chewing a cat toy.
oh,
And I think he's ripped the nose off of it.
oh my God. So cute.
And he loves the cats so much. And the cats have already decided, shown him who's boss. But it's like awesome. It's just awesome that they are not actually hurting each other. So you're like, not all the cats like him, but they're like living together. Okay.
Good.
Which is good. So good. I've started using a whistle for his barking. Actually really helped. So because he gets like into these bark attack modes where he's barking at the cat. And my old cat Sushi is fine with it in a way. He's sort of like, what are you? But because he barks at the young ones too, I'm like, dude, you're gonna lose some eyeballs. You have to be mindful. So I found this like wooden, like a handmade whistle, and it's cute. It's like a little something I got in Tumbler Ridge. I think it's beautifully made. It's this little tiny whistle with a bear face, and it's been working for him to. I'm teaching quiet, because man, does he break the sound barrier. So yeah, feel free to like introduce a bit of gesso into your sketchbook, and if your paper starts to buckle, don't worry about it. It's all good. You could even do just like highlights with the, so in say these dancing trees, if you wanted to have, or say you feel like you went too dark, and this in the future, not just trees, but if you ever feel like, you know how sometimes you go to erase something and you get the ghost mark and it's never quite like the paper's damaged. That's what I call it. The paper's actually damaged. You could then start to think out of the box and go, well, if I just brought in gesso, now it's going to make it a mixed media piece. The gesso will be obvious because you'll never match the color of the white gesso or whatever with the paper color. It'll always look like, oh, you added paint to it. But if you did it intentionally, that would be really awesome. I think that bold move of just like, okay, instead of saying this didn't work out, let's take it into a different realm. Give it an opportunity to become something amazing. I'm glad I look at my notes. I'd also like to open this up to if anyone has modeling paste or a molding paste, that you can use that as a ground. That is a ground actually as well. There's acrylic mediums. This is a little techie. Taking you maybe out of your meditative state, and I apologize, but for the sake of understanding our materials, acrylic mediums are always, made to be used with the paint, but grounds are a different category, and they're not necessarily made to use with the paint. They're made to prepare a surface. So under the category of a ground is a gesso, is a pastel ground, and a modeling paste. So even though all of those things you can add to acrylic paint, their formula is intended to create a very nice, effective ground that is either for absorbency or a tooth or coverage, etc. A seal, So yeah, modeling paste is in that zone, and I don't have any, so I can't really show you or do a demo on modeling paste. But it's a beautiful surface. You can definitely draw on that if you have it and you want to try it, maybe a little sample of that. And the same rules apply. Just don't go too thick too quick. because modeling paste is fairly thick and you can feel like you can go really 3D and you can, but slower is better for drying time and properly curing. So yeah, don't hesitate to ask me if you like, say, Nancy Jane, you probably have that in your sample kit, modeling paste,
Probably I'll have a look.
Yeah, it'd be really nice if any of you have like even just 2 different things, is to prepare 2 different surfaces and write on the back what they are, and then maybe even cut that up into half or something. Yeah, I'm probably I'll probably do half sheets, which are gonna be like 4 by 8. Yeah, because they're trees, so they're tall. If you want to do a black gesso test, we can always look at, it doesn't have to be graphite necessarily. Graphite is really just a lovely center heart for the course, but if you have colored pencil crayons or pastel pencils, and you have white and light colors, then drawing on black gesso would be lovely. So the gesso is also the heart. So don't think that, if you have that, do a little sample of that too. Interesting. So the Payne's gray actually dried really nice. It is not as black as I thought it was going to be.
Sounds pretty.
Midnight indigo-ish. Yeah. Yeah, kind of cool. Okay, so I have that, and then I have a reclaimed one. And this is not dry yet, but you can perhaps on video see how that translucent sea is affecting the under drawing. This is a really nice, for those who have access to maybe like a lumber yard. This is before I moved. A friend of mine was helping me with boxes, and he was like, he's in construction. So he said, oh, I need to go and get some wood. And I was like, oh, so this was a poplar, a huge beam of it. And it was so affordable. So I asked them to cut down the beam to like approximately 8 by 12. And I love the color of poplar. It's a slight greenish tinge. So it cost me $40 and they cut down this big plank, 2x4 situation. So I got like more than 12 of that size for $40. And so
Wow,
it's
great.
like, it's heavy, but the size, I mean, I don't know if it would really work out if you got big sheets of it, because it might be too heavy to hang, or you'd have to get into different hanging systems. But like, this is manageable with like a sawtooth, to hang. So going to a hardware store or alternatives for wood can be really exciting. I was so stupidly like excited in that place. Hey, no. This is not for you. It's eating my references. Okay, so questions, comments for next week. Get your brain thinking about what maybe you can prepare now, so that it's just set aside and ready for next week while it's fresh on your mind. I'm gonna send you the Emily Carr trees that I took recently, but also any of the I've already sent you, you can use. If you're unsure and you're looking through your own photos, just send me a text or an email and ask me, hey, what do you think? Happy to help with that. I hear you. I do. Yeah. Need to go outside, have some lunch, go out for a walk. This is all new to me, being a mommy. I must say, it's nice. The bladder is getting stronger. Sleeping through the night, which is amazing. Okay, so I have been reviewing my little notes here, and we've covered surface prep, anatomy of at least the basic anatomy of a tree. Every reference will have its own challenges. Next week, I'd like to think about color. So I'll also suggest the other things on the material list. You don't have to have them all, but I will probably have at my fingertips a little watercolor block, just even a couple colors, that it doesn't have to be the whole set of something. A couple colored pencils, a couple soft pastels, ink if you like ink. If you don't, that's fine. You don't have to. And then just again exploring the graphite as a basic. Oh, charcoal's always welcome here. Yeah. And we're going to treat those surfaces as something to experiment on and not very precious, but at the same time, I've always promised this. Whenever I go in to do something and I just say right away, right from the get-go, it's okay if this fails. It's okay if this gets trashed. Guess what? I can use gesso on top of all of it at the end of it. It's all still worth it because of the time and the process, just being here creating. But the philosophy is, and I do believe this, that more times than not, it does work out because of that, because you just let go immediately of any control, of any forcing, preconceived notions of what should be. So just being open and arms spread, in the air, just from the beginning is a really great place to start. So if you have nice pieces of wood or nice paper and you want to gesso that and prepare it, this is still, it can be really like a cardboard pizza box, but it can also be like a really nice piece of wood if you've been waiting to get into it. I really think this combination is very forgiving as well. So next week, we'll also look at how we can really pull back a lot, not just repriming, but also we can use water and really just pull back some things if they're not working out. So it's forgiving. And I really do think you can create some exceptionally unique pieces. So be open to using some good stuff that you have as well. Okay. Well, listen, we're going to have a bigger group next week because we got some people back from their schedules. And so I might do start with a tiny little bit review, but I am always happy to hear from you. If you want to share, you want to hit me up during the week, do it. And I think we should go out and enjoy the rest of the day, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Loved it.
Bye. Thanks.
This is, just such a great group. And I know that we're here because of trees, but also just putting in some creative time. Thank you for your time. I love it.
Thank you.
Guys. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, then.